Under what circumstances can APS and CPS be held liable for the death of a person? To find out, you have to read Maldovan versus County of Erie. It's only 43 pages. Don't have time for that? I got you covered. This is TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, the case of Maldovan versus County of Erie, which can be found at 2022 New York Slip Opinion 06632, published by the Court of Appeals on November 22nd, 2022. This was a complicated case. Took probably about 100 pages of reading to get through these materials and the background. The case comes down to this issue. Does the Special Duty Doctrine, which I'll go through in a few moments, authorize and permit a negligence action to be filed against a municipal adult protective services agency and child protective services agency for the inaction that led to the death of a developmentally disabled 23-year-old woman? The majority opinion says no, and the dissenting opinion says yes. Because it's so complicated, I'm going to very much cut down on the details and just give you the summary here. Laura Cummings was a 23-year-old woman with developmental disabilities. She was living at home with her mother and her brothers, some of her brothers. There was a suspicion of abuse, and a family member contacted another family friend to contact APS or CPS. Basically, APS and CPS were each contacted to investigate the situation for Laura Cummings to see if she was being abused. And each time they investigated, they determined that it was unfounded. And they closed the cases. 2 months after the last investigation, Laura Cummings was found dead. She'd been tortured and sexually assaulted and murdered by her family members, her mother and one of her brothers, who were convicted and sentenced to lengthy stays in prison. The issue here comes down to the Special Duty Doctrine. And to explain this a little bit, I have to step back and explain that New York State, like every state, was started out as a sovereign entity. The states are sort of sovereign. But in 1939, New York passed a broad waiver of their sovereign immunity, okay? The courts subsequently created a common law doctrine called governmental function immunity to provide some immunity from essential functions. Like, you can't call the police, you can't sue the police for failing to protect you from a robber that they don't know anything about. You can't sue the water service because your water, service breaks. That's not really, the court doctrine recognized that governmental functions have a private part and a public part. And if there's a private part, you can sue. But if there's a public part, generally you can't unless there's a special duty. So that's when the Special Duty Doctrine was developed. And the Special Duty Doctrine, this court goes on to reiterate and reaffirm what it is. Basically, there's 3 ways to sue under negligence a governmental agency, a municipal agency, if there's a special duty. One way is if there's a statutory framework for it, where the plaintiff is a member of a group that the statute is designed to protect. The second way is called the special relationship test. Special relationship test says that if the municipal agency voluntarily assumes a duty with respect to the plaintiff above and beyond that which it provides to the public, then a special relationship exists that would provide a basis for a lawsuit in negligence. And the third ground is it's if a municipality takes positive control of a known and dangerous condition. Let's say a municipality buys a toxic waste site, right? They have to do certain things to protect people because that's a dangerous controlled site. The majority opinion goes through those special duty doctrine elements, each of the 3 provisions, and says no, no, and no. And therefore, there's no liability here for negligence that the estate of Laura Cummings can impose against APS and CPS. The dissent goes through the same history, goes through a very long history of sovereign immunity and this test, and specifically the special relationship test. And they say here she should have gotten the ability to hold APS and CPS liable, both for the statutory provision, because social services law entitles people like Laura Cummings to protection. And secondly, they go through the test, which you'll have to look up on your own, the special relationship test, which is a 4-part test. And they go through each of them and say that would have been established in this case. 5 minutes, too long, didn't read. The case of Maldovan versus County of Erie. If you like what you just saw and want to see more just like it, please hit like or subscribe to let me know.